If you become the CEO, I'm taking half the employees with me and quitting. The company will go bankrupt for sure. Thank you, that's really helpful. Huh? Honestly, that's really a relief. I'll leave it to you to handle the employees who quit with you. What are you talking about? My unexpected response left Steve, director, stunned. When I gave him a defiant smile, his face turned grim. What's with that face? It's irritating. You think you've won because you have many employees on your side, but that's not enough to bother me at all. Haha. Don't make excuses. If half the employees leave, this company is finished. Don't you get something that simple? Steve, who always tried to one-up me and harass me, was visibly upset by my reverse psychology, and he let out a high-pitched yell. I can stop you guys, so do as you please. Ha, don't come crying back to me later wanting to return. I'm done with the company with a useless CEO. 1 month later. Please, I beg you, help me. Steve came crying to my company, begging on his knees. My name is Mike. I'm a 42-year-old full-time employee. I've been working at this company since I was a new graduate and now serve as the head of the department, thanks to my hard work. Managing a department full of strong personalities and only men is tough, but I tackle my job every day with a sense of responsibility. As I was preparing for an afternoon meeting, Steve, my subordinate who is 4 years younger than me, came to my desk. Steve was a standout employee from the beginning and had always been considered a rising star among the young staff. He's very confident. Mike, how's the new project preparation going? Hurry up with the next instructions. The subordinates are struggling because of a boss like you. Sigh, I'm definitely more suited to be the head. It's frustrating when incompetence at the top affects everyone else. The new project is progressing well, and we've received positive feedback from the client. Now, Steve, go back to your work. Dang. Steve clicked his tongue and returned to his desk. He's always been someone who tries to dominate me. It seems he can't stand not being the best. Since I became the head over him, he's been even more confrontational. I usually ignore his sarcasm and focus on my work. But there's another issue. Steve is very harsh to employees who don't flatter him. He would ruthlessly criticize their work, even if there were no real issues, saying things like, "This is terrible, redo it. Do you even have any motivation?" I glanced over at Steve's desk and saw him at it again. How can you not make a simple document properly? Maybe you should just quit this company. I'm sorry. Seeing a young employee about to cry while apologizing, I went over to them. Let me see that. I checked the document and it was well organized with no issues. There's nothing wrong here. This is good work. You can move on to your other tasks. Thank you so much. Annoying. As the subordinate went back to his desk, Steve muttered something under his breath and resumed his work. I returned to my desk, feeling exasperated. The company atmosphere has been really bad lately. I need to do something about this. And then another problem arose. You're such a waste. Can't you do even this simple task properly? I'm sorry. It's so irritating dealing with such incompetence. Today, one of my subordinates made a mistake at work. The error wasn't particularly serious, but Steve threw documents at the subordinate and kept harshly criticizing them. You're no longer needed here, so don't bother coming to the office. Just your presence annoys me and lowers work efficiency. You're a real nuisance. Steve, that's enough. You don't need to worry about it, I told the subordinate. Sorry. After that day, the subordinate who was scolded by Steve stopped coming to work. Even though it was Steve's fault, he unashamedly continued to badmouth the subordinate. Quitting over something like this shows a real lack of guts. Well, it's better for us now that the incompetent one is gone. Work will be smoother. Stop talking like that, Steve. Enough is enough. What's with the attitude? When I reprimanded Steve, he muttered under his breath and went off to his lunch break. As I was pondering what to do about Steve's misconduct, I got a call from the president's office. Actually, my grandfather has been the president of this company for many years. Only long-serving employees know that I am president's grandson. Excuse me, Mr. Smith, did you call for me? Mike, come in, have a seat here. I was urged to sit on the sofa. This seemed like it was going to be a long talk. Mike, you've been with the company for a long time, climbed the ranks, and I think you've developed the ability to lead the staff, so I want you to become our vice president. But what about the current vice president, Mr. Brown? I thought this meant promoting Mr. Brown to president and making me the vice president. I had thought my elderly grandfather was finally retiring, but his response was unexpected. Actually, he has fallen seriously ill and can't return to work. What? That's terrible. Mr. Brown was a person I deeply respected, friendly and supportive. I was shocked to hear he had to leave due to illness. As I was processing this, my grandfather continued. It's a shock to me too, Mike. Will you become the vice president and help me run the company? I understand. Despite feeling unsure if I was up to the task, I wanted to meet my grandfather's expectations and nodded firmly. News of my appointment as vice president leaked somehow and quickly spread throughout the company. Steve's attitude towards me worsened. Once, as I walked through the office, he deliberately bumped into me and clicked his tongue. Ouch, you're in my way. Don't just stand there like an idiot. Another time, he slammed documents on my desk and left without a word. I even caught him spreading lies about me to other employees. Mike is all about sucking up to the boss. At a drinking party with the boss, he was so obsequious it was disgusting. And did you know he's actually president's grandson? No wonder he got to be vice president without being any good at his job. You guys don't have to listen to Mike. I'm way better at this job. You'd be better off following me. I had never sucked up to any boss. Seeing Steve spread such falsehoods, I was shaking with anger but left the scene. A few days later, I noticed something strange. Could you help me compile this document? Hey, are you listening? Even the employees I used to work closely with wouldn't respond to me. They just looked away and ignored me, starting other tasks. Stunned by this attitude, I heard Steve's mocking laugh behind me. Too bad, nobody listens to you anymore. You have no place here now. It seems like Steve is trying to turn the other employees against me. Yet, I remained undaunted and continued to focus on my work. Steve, is everything ready for the next meeting? Show me what you've got. I need to check. Seriously, why do I have to get your approval? I'm just doing my job as your supervisor. Nobody thinks of you as a boss. Haha, don't order me around. This worthless job. Just do it yourself. When Steve said this to me, I could hear snickering from the other employees. Enough, you guys. At the limit of my patience with the employees' attitude, I was about to shout when the intercom rang. It's serious. Mr. Smith has. What? Shockingly, my grandfather, the company's president, had suffered a heart attack and been rushed to the hospital. I hurried to the hospital, but by the time I arrived, my grandfather had already passed away. Engulfed in sorrow, I saw my grandfather's funeral proceed solemnly. I will carry on your will, Grandpa. In his will, my grandfather named me as his successor and the next company president. After the funeral, with the help of employees who had always worked for us and admired my grandfather and me, I busily took over the company in his absence. These hectic days passed quickly, and finally, the day came when I was appointed president. As I entered the large hall where the restless employees had gathered and stood in front of the podium, the hall fell silent. Thank you all for gathering here. It is with great sadness that I inform you that Mr. Smith, who has supported this company for many years, has passed away suddenly. Before his death, I was appointed as the next president of the company. So from today, I will become the president, and together with you all, I will continue to make this company thrive." Just as I finished speaking, Steve came to the front of the hall, snatched the microphone from the host, and began to protest. "I oppose this man becoming president. He's only inheriting the position because he's the late president's grandson, despite having no real ability. What will happen to this company under an incompetent president? Our performance will plummet. The company's management will suffer, and we might all end up on the streets. Don't you all actually oppose him as a president?" As Steve made his speech, the hall began to buzz again. From the crowd, jeers like "I oppose Mike becoming president," and "Steve is more suited to be president," could be heard, probably from employees always fawning over Steve. "Steve, I'm in the middle of an important conversation. Can you please be quiet?" Even as I calmly urged silence, Steve heated up further. "If you become president, I refuse to keep working in this company. It's doomed anyway. Everyone should think wisely about what to do next." After addressing the employees, Steve left the hall. After the disturbance, while I was taking a breather in the president's office, Steve returned, accompanied by a large group of employees. I didn't know what he was planning, but Steve came in with a smug grin. "What now, Steve?" When I asked, Steve slammed a resignation letter on the table. "If you're the president, half the employees are quitting. This company's going down." "Thank you, that's helpful." "What? Really, it helps. Take care of the employees who are leaving with you." "What are you talking about?" Steve looked stunned at my unexpected response, his expression turning grim. "What's with that face? It's irritating. You might think you've won by turning so many employees against me, but it doesn't bother me at all. Don't be a sore loser. If half the staff leaves, this company is finished. Don't you get that?" As I continued to aggravate Steve, who always tried to get the upper hand and harass me, he screeched in anger. "I have no right to stop you all, so do as you please." Don't come crying to me later, wanting to return. I'm saying goodbye to a company with such a useless president. Come on, everyone, let's go. After saying this and getting the other employees to submit their resignations, Steve left the president's office. A month later. "Please, help me." As expected, Steve came back to my company in tears. After leaving my company, Steve and his followers joined another company together. It seems they had coincidentally met the president of a newly established company, Mr. Johnson. Steve and his group joined the company, lured by Mr. Johnson's desire to expand the business and increase staff. It seems Steve planned to take half the staff from my company to collapse it. Everything was going well until Steve realized a certain problem. It turned out that the employees who had been fawning over him and whom he brought to the new company had a habit of slacking off since their time at my company, and this was causing a decline in performance. Even after switching jobs, there was no change in these employees' work attitudes, leading to a drop in the new company's performance. Steve, who had focused too much on whether his subordinates were obedient to him, failed to grasp their actual work capabilities, which led to his embarrassment. Mr. Johnson harshly criticized him, saying, "Ever since you brought your employees and joined our company, our performance has been steadily declining. What kind of guidance have you been giving them? It really shows your level." The kind-hearted Mr. Johnson still gave Steve a chance to properly guide his subordinates. Worried about losing his job, Steve started to focus more on coaching his team. However, it wasn't easy to change the work attitudes of so many employees. To make matters worse, misfortune continued to befall Steve. "Steve, I want you to quit this company." Although Steve had only been working for a few months, he was suddenly forced to resign, and he impatiently asked why. "I heard you were harassing your subordinates at your previous company, driving them to resign," he was accused. "Why do you know that?" It turned out that there was a chance to deal with his previous company, and during that time, I spoke with Mike Williams. Mike, that guy. Steve muttered my name in disgust. It seems this story is indeed true. No, this is a misunderstanding. It's all because of that guy, Joe. He's lying to frame me. I was being harassed by Mr. Williams, the president of that other company, so I brought my team here to change jobs. Please believe me. Well then, how do you explain this? Oops. Mr. Johnson laid out some photographs on the desk. There were pictures of Steve grabbing an employee's hair and scolding them harshly, and another of him grabbing an employee by the collar and glaring at them. To anyone, it looked like Steve was tormenting his employees. Then Mr. Johnson started playing a recording. Steve's voice, scolding his subordinates harshly, resonated from it. This is your voice, isn't it? How awful. But this is. You were tough on subordinates who didn't flatter you and constantly showered them with unkind words, weren't you? We can afford to have you crush our talented employees. I want you to resign. No way. I promise I won't do anything like this again. Please forgive me. Even though you say that, you haven't made any significant contributions since joining our company. Frankly, I don't think your abilities are that great. There's no benefit for us in keeping you. That's. Steve, who was full of confidence in his abilities, was completely devastated by the decision to be fired and was expelled from the company. But his misfortune didn't end there. Shortly after being kicked out, Steve was sued by a former employee whom he had harassed and forced to resign from the company. The former employee had collected voice recordings of being verbally abused by Steve as evidence. As a result, Steve faced a claim for damages. Having already resigned, Steve struggled with daily expenses and now had to deal with paying for damages. Though finding a new job quickly would have been ideal, companies were reluctant to hire Steve after he was fired so soon from his last job. Proud Steve, refusing to work for a subsidiary, pleaded at the job center, only to be met with a sigh. I don't think there are many companies willing to hire you. As he continued this way, Steve's savings ran out, and he could no longer pay the rent for the apartment he had been living in since working at my company. Now, he is staying in a small, run-down apartment. Having narrated all this, Steve knelt before me. Please, Mike, hire me again at this company. I won't harass anyone anymore and will work diligently. I'm truly sorry for everything. Faced with this sudden plea at the company entrance, even I was at a loss. Employees passing by whispered to each other. Isn't that Steve? Nah, it is. What's he doing? He looks so bad. Steve's face reddened as he heard their voices. Steve, I understand how you feel, I said. So, as Steve looked up hopefully, I spoke coldly. But even if you apologize now, it doesn't erase the scars you left on the employees who quit because of your harassment. You didn't think much of it, but those you harassed were deeply hurt. That you don't understand such a simple thing and hurt our valuable employees means you have no place in our company. It's bothersome to have you here any longer, so could you please leave? That's, darn it. With a look of despair and then frustration, Steve left my company. Mr. Williams. This deal was a huge success. Yes, thanks to everyone's cooperation and hard work. Thank you. Having Mr. Williams visit the site and offer advice really boosts the morale of the staff. I'm glad to hear that. I was worried I might be a nuisance. Not at all. Everyone trusts you, especially since the employees who remained are all loyal. After Steve and his followers resigned, my company's performance improved significantly. The dedicated and motivated remaining staff worked efficiently, despite being fewer in number, leading to these results. The overall atmosphere of the company became brighter and more energetic, enabling everyone to work together harmoniously and enjoyably. Our new project, prepared with the cooperation of the entire company, was a great success, further brightening the future of our company. Today, I continue to work alongside trustworthy colleagues on meaningful projects, enjoying fulfilling days.